As soon as I set foot in my first palace in Persona 5, I immediately thought of Psychonauts. Going into someone's head, seeing what makes them tick, seems like a pretty no-brainer comparison. I haven't seen many people talk about this though. Maybe it's because the games are so different. One's a JRPG, one's a 3D platformer, one's made in the US, one in Japan. One I finished in a week, the other I'm still playing since last year. I think I'll be playing this for the next year though, from what I've heard of its length. Sup, I'm Slashy, thanks for checking out the video. Now, despite these differences, there are some pretty strong similarities between Persona 5 and Psychonauts 2. Both of these games deal with manifestations of inner worlds. Changes in these worlds result in changes to the person whose level it is. The way each game deals with these changes, boy oh boy are they different. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Also, this is me from the future. I tried to recreate the original footage, but I can't for the life of me get my hair right. So, sorry about that. You'll be dealing with some hair changes now and then, so, just ignore that. Or play Spot the Difference if you like. On with the video. Full disclosure though, I haven't finished Persona 5 yet. I know. It's really long, okay? I've been playing it once a week since November 2020, and I'm still not done. I'm past the 5th palace though, so I think I'm far enough along for this to make sense. This will probably age badly, but you know what? Whatever, we're going in anyway. Before we jump in, a blanket spoiler warning for Persona 5 and Psychonauts. More Psychonauts too, since I played that more recently. I'll only go into fairly early game events, but just in case, you've been warned. Alright, let's start with some basic summaries. In Persona 5, you're a Japanese teenager called Joker. I still love it. He's under probation right now, and he just moved to an unfamiliar area, lives with curry and coffee dad, and starts at a new school. He's supposed to keep his head down and get through the year without incident. But this is a JRPG, we know how it goes. He gets sucked into an alternate reality called the Metaverse. In the Metaverse, people's inner views of the world and themselves manifest as dungeons known as palaces. You go through each palace, steal the treasure, change some hearts, and make some friends along the way. There's more to it than that, but I'm sticking at very broad strokes for the purposes of this video. In Psychonauts, you play a boy named Raz who's learning to control his psychic abilities. He wants to join the Psychonauts, a secret agency that uses their psychic powers to help people. In the first game, he joins a summer camp full of psychic kids, and the second game, he becomes an intern for the Psychonauts. The levels in the games are the minds of different people. The goal is to navigate the minds to find information to help the plot along, while sorting through their mental state. Starting to see some similarities? No? That's okay. We'll go a little deeper. Part 1. The Worlds. In Persona 5, palaces get created when someone's desires are heavily distorted compared to reality. The palace is styled after how the character sees the world and their place in it. To get in, our heroes need to figure out who has a palace, where it is in the real world, and what the palace looks like. In Kamoshida's palace, the first one in the story, it's a castle that is at Joe's school. The shadow version of Kamoshida is the king of the castle. So Kamoshida sees the school as his castle, and he the king of it. Subtle, huh? In every palace, there's a treasure at the center of the distortion. If you steal the treasure, the palace collapses. So this is how it goes down for each palace. We infiltrate it, find out where the treasure is, back out into the real world, send a pretty vague serial killer style note to put the host on edge. This manifests the treasure. Go back in, fight a boss, steal the treasure, and then gap it while the palace collapses. In the real world, the host gets weighed down by overwhelming guilt of what they've done, and then immediately and publicly confess to their crimes. The treasure you steal turns into a real object. It's the object that started the host down towards this path of corruption. It's not the same as the one that the host physically owns, but it's a little confusing. Whew, that's a lot. but it pretty much plays out the same for every palace. Now, Psychonauts. Psychonauts levels are the minds of different characters. Like you literally throw a door on someone's head and go inside. Unlike Persona palaces where only a few people have them, everyone's mind is potentially a level that can be explored. In Agent Foresight's mind, she has a history in healthcare, so her mind is like a hospital. It's also clean and organized, which makes sense for a Psychonaut. Mentally tidy. As is tradition for a 3D platformer, there's a few collectibles. Figments of the imagination, nuggets of wisdom, emotional baggage. But my favorite are the memory vaults. You get a short slideshow showing a memory that's important to the host. This is what I was actually let down the most by in Persona 5. I fully thought we'd be getting something like this in the palaces. Heck, look at these doors! That looks like a repressed memory if I've ever seen one. But no, it's just a random collectible. A bit disappointing. Psychonauts has a pretty one-to-one mapping with my understanding of the mind, and I think it's a little easier to wrap your head around. Persona is a little trickier. The palaces are like someone's heart, but a distorted heart? But a common catchphrase in the game is that the Phantom Thieves are stealing people's hearts. So is the treasure the heart? But are we stealing the heart? Or just the bad parts of the heart? Is all desire bad? I think they touch on it a little bit early game, but I don't think they really come down on it one way or another. It's a little foggier with its metaphors. At least I think so. Okay, that's our worlds. Let's get into the interesting stuff. Part 2. Consent. Oh boy, you can probably see where I'm going with this. Let me explain. Persona is not really big on consent. The host maybe kinda knows that you're in there, on a subconscious level at least. This is represented by our fancy outfits in the game, but otherwise they have no idea it's happening. It's only when they get a calling card that they're aware of it, and that's only in the real world after we've been mucking around in there. There's a little debate in game about the ethics of forcefully changing someone's heart, but it's pretty clear which side the game's on. The targets have usually gone too far. The police isn't doing anything. This is the only way to get them to stop hurting people. It's justified because we're doing it to help the victims, and in pretty much every case, it's to directly help someone who will eventually join the party. Persona doesn't even entertain the idea that it's possible to help the hosts change on their own. They're too far gone. In Psychonauts, consent is a major part of the plot. Raz makes mental connections inside Agent Foresight's mind early in the game, and it has pretty bad consequences. He changes her entire worldview, causing a hospital to get a Las Vegas casino-style makeover. Raz undoes the damage and then gets yelled at by everyone to never mess around in someone's mind without their consent. And he never does from then on. He always asks before going in, and he never makes mental connections again. This plot point was actually what made me want to make the video in the first place. Playing through that scene in Psychonauts 2 after playing through Persona for a while, the difference was pretty hard to ignore. There is a slight difference in these situations though. In Psychonauts, the hosts are usually more a harm to themselves than others. Usually. And when we go in to help, not to punish. The Persona hosts are actively hurting others. The game presents it like it's the perfect solution. The end justifies the means. There is one big exception to this. Futaba's palace. She's the only one who asked the Phantom Thieves to change her heart. Everything we learn in her palace gives her more depth and helps us understand her. It plays a lot like a Psychonauts level actually. It's probably because she joins the main cast after that she's allowed to have more depth. That's not the only way she breaks the rules. Okay, I have a bit of a tangent to go on about Futaba that's a little more spoilery. So, if you want to skip it, jump over to the next section. Ready? Okay. Back when we talked about the treasures in the palace, I mentioned that they were physical objects. That's true for everyone except Futaba. Futaba's is herself. So when we take a treasure out of a palace, that means Futaba gets taken out of her own palace. What the heck happens to the old Futaba? Did her mind replace her old mind? Or did her body get replaced as well? Because she came from the metaverse, does that mean she's an alternate reality version of herself? There are so many questions. The other treasures that we take out can exist in parallel with the original object, but what does that mean for Futaba? This opens a whole can of worms that I'm pretty sure Atlus never intended to wrestle with, and it really, really breaks the established rules. And it's just never mentioned. Ever! It was such a non-issue that I didn't even catch this when I played through this part. It wasn't until I was trying to remember all the treasures for making this video, and then my mind imploded. So think of her as a special case. When I talked to friends about this, it was mentioned that it was probably Atlus calling back to Persona 4, since that's more how the palaces functioned in that game. Helping your friends reconcile with their own inner demons? It sounds pretty sweet. But it doesn't work at all in Persona 5's world. Part 3. Rehabilitation. For a game that mentions rehabilitation as much as it does,
you must be rehabilitated. You truly make it worth rehabilitating you. Of the rehabilitation that you must...
Your rehabilitation goes well.
Another step has been taken to rehabilitation. Rehabilitation.
Persona's view of rehabilitation is pretty simplistic. It turns it into surgery. We go in there, cut out the corruption, and all the bad behavior gets magically fixed. Almost like, what if lobotomy actually worked? This takes away any agency the host has over their own behavior. The palace collapses after the treasure is stolen, and we don't really know what happens after that. What would it feel like to wake up one day and have your worldview completely changed? What are the long-term effects of this? Would you still be you? Who's to say you wouldn't create a palace all over again? We don't really get answers to these questions. Once justice is served, it doesn't matter anymore. The minds in Psychonauts help you understand why a person is the way they are. No matter what they've done, it never shames or judges them. This, I think, is the key difference between the games. The relationship between the heroes and the hosts in Persona is adversarial. Everything we learn in a palace makes you want to bring them down even more. We never get a chance to understand them. Not that we should sympathize with rapists and abusers, but there isn't really any room for nuance in Persona 5. It's all black and white. In Psychonauts, it's anything but black and white. There is a lot of gray. Oh boy, does it get gray later on. It's sometimes adversarial, but only a part of the mind. There's always a part that's cooperative. We work together with the host, and when you visit the levels later, for collectibles, it's in a calmer state. Persona 5's way of fixing people is probably its biggest fantasy. That and we can all get a kick-ass group of friends. If we just exist, they'll come to us. There's no easy fix for abusive behavior, as much as we wish there would be. The real world is messier, and it takes a lot of active work for you to change your own worldview and behavior. And it has to be your work. We can always get help, and there's definitely no shame in that. But we can't have someone magically fix our problems for us. Conclusion. By the way, this doesn't mean I hate Persona 5. Far from it. I've been having a lot of fun with the game, and y'all can probably gather that I love Psychonauts 2. It's probably one of my favorite games of 2021. Just in this particular way, I couldn't help but draw the comparison. And overall, I think Psychonauts has a more uplifting message and cohesive theming overall. At the beginning of the game, there's a mental health advisory showing that the Psychonauts devs worked with a variety of experts to make sure as much care as possible is being brought to the subject matter. And that care really does come through. That about sums it up. Thanks for watching. There's so much more to say about both of these games. I've only just scratched the surface, really. So if you have any thoughts, just dump them in the comments. Please be chill though, and try to keep spoilers to a minimum. I am still playing through Persona 5 as we speak, and probably will be for the next few months since I'm playing Royal. But yeah, just lay out the spoilers if you can. And I also play other games too, so if you like what you see, come on over and follow me on Twitch and join me in the shenanigans. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.